Christian Miller.
It's time for the Miller's Edge with 4-time SEC champion and 2-time national champion Christian Miller.
Once again with Christian Miller taking him down.
Here's college football playoff national champion Christian Miller on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC.
And welcome into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Appreciate you guys being patient right there for a couple seconds. Really weird stuff, man. As soon as we went live, the whole internet just had gone down, and we got it pulled back up, which is great, man. Gotta love technology sometimes. Nonetheless, man, happy to be with you guys today on a Talking Tuesday. Plenty to dive into and talk about today. And we'll give you guys a little heads up. We're going to talk some more football as we continue off of yesterday's topic, which was a really good conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We are joined by Landon Tengwall of the Landon Tengwall College Football Show, and we went into a really deep dive into the offensive line. Now, we were supposed to cover really the whole team and cover a number of other topics, but we didn't even get that far because we really just we got caught up with the offensive line, which makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of question marks, a lot of new faces there, and Landon does a really good job with his extensive breakdowns. So we got to take a look at each guy. Not only the guys coming in, but also talking a little bit about some of the young players that will be returning and competing for 4 of those 5 jobs, because we're penciling in Michael Carroll as a starter at right tackle. I think that's a pretty safe bet. If you were a betting man like our guy Smitty is, I think you'd have a good chance of winning yourself some money. So we talked about those 4 other spots that are open, who we think will fill those spots, and kind of gave some background information on those players, which, you know, we took a deep dive into them when they first announced they're coming here, but it's always nice to get up.
Last week of the regular season and still got a lot to play for. So,
Okay, there we go.
Obviously, the win Saturday was.
Can you hear me, Chase?
Christian, you're loud and clear now. I don't know what happened.
I'm sorry. Hey,
you're all good.
Listen, no. So there is I'll just say this. I did see an Xfinity truck around the area earlier today, and I'm assuming maybe they're messing with something, because it literally it's like going in and out, and I don't know exactly why, but hopefully we can keep rolling as smooth as possible. And I'll make sure during the break I'll see if there's, because I'm rolling off the phone's hotspot at this point, and hopefully we can just kind of make sure that stays put. So I'll configure that here in a minute. But long story short, we talked with Landon yesterday and got a really good breakdown from him. If you guys missed that or want to go back and listen to it again, make sure you guys check that out over on our YouTube page at The Miller's Edge. You can go watch yesterday's episode. Fast forward about midway through, he came on at the top of the hour. The first hour we spent talking about the NFL Combine, our takeaways from all the Alabama players at the Combine. There was 12 players that attended it. Thought all the guys did really well, so that was pretty much the discussion yesterday. Today on the Talking Tuesday, I want to continue talking Alabama football because we are less than a week away from it kicking off. It will kick off next week. A lot of excitement there. People are starting to bring up the storylines that everybody's looking forward to. We already know the quarterback battle is going to be a big one. We'll talk about that at one point. But today, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about some of these transfers. We talked a lot about the offensive line guys, but today I want to look at all the transfers as a whole and kind of circle back to the guys that we picked up via the portal and who I'm excited to see this spring, because I want to talk about who I think could have the biggest impact out of all the guys that came in during the spring portal window, because we got quite the list of players to look at. A lot of guys filling in some key places across both sides of the football: defensive line, offensive line, linebacker position, wide receiver. I mean, you name it, we picked up some new players. So we're going to talk about those guys. And I want to get y'all's thoughts on it as well. Who do you believe will be the transfer that has the highest or the greatest impact on this football team for this upcoming season in 2026? We'll talk about that and some more today. Plus, like we always do on a Talking Tuesday at the top of the hour, we will be joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. So looking forward to talking with Clint. We'll get his thoughts about a week away from spring ball, where he's at with everything, some of the storylines that we've seen as we approach spring ball, some of the battles that will be taking place. We'll get the latest on that and his own thoughts, again, via Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson at the top of the hour. And we'll keep on rolling. And, of course, we'll get y'all's thoughts and perspectives. 205-342-9904 is the number if you guys want to get in on the action. We're pretty much free up until noon. And then once we get Clint on, we'll talk with him. And then afterwards, we'll open the phone lines back up just so you guys don't have to sit there and wait forever on the phone line. So I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of a schedule there. In terms of anything else big going on, you do have Alabama basketball. They will be taking on Georgia. It's an away game, but I want to say final game coming up here in Coleman is against Auburn. Am I right on that, Reed?
That would be correct.
Iron Bowl of basketball to wrap things up. So that's definitely a big one. But first, you got the Georgia Bulldogs. And I don't know, maybe we'll talk a little bit of basketball. I definitely will plan on, now that we're getting into March, or we are in March, and you got March Madness coming up, we'll start really locking in a little bit more on basketball. I got to show some love to Coach Oates and the basketball squad. They've been playing some really good ball last few weeks, man. And we got through the Bediako stuff, and all of a sudden, man, this team, whether they're healthier or, Phylon missed a game a couple weeks ago, or a couple games ago, I should say, and still look good. So I don't know. This team's finally kind of getting hot at the right time, and I'm excited to see what they can do as we approach March Madness. So we'll maybe dive into that here in a little bit on the show. Real quick before we hit this first break, got to remind you about our friends over at R&R Cigars. If you guys are in the market for those premium cigars, make sure you guys check them out. R&R Cigars, 2703 Gary Fitz Street is where you can find them here in Tuscaloosa, or you can always go to their website, rnrcigars.com. Use that code Miller's Edge, and we'll get you a nice discount. Plus, if your order qualifies, you can get yourself free shipping, and that is nationwide. So make sure you guys check them out. And for sure, if you are around here, go and check out the mansion itself. If you need a place to hang out, watch the game tonight, that's a great place to do it. They've got the best humidor in the Southeast, but not only that, they got over 160 bourbons for you to try. Kick back and relax, drink responsibly. Okay, yeah. That said, let's we'll go to break here, and I'll definitely try to get this cleaned up as possible. But yes, check out R&R Cigars for all your cigar needs, or if you're just a sports fan and you need a place to go hang out, kick back, and relax. Again, that's R&R Cigars, the official cigar provider of Alabama football since 2014. Sounds like we might need a new internet provider at this point. Unfortunately, I don't know if you have any other choices than who's offered, which I'm not even going to say their name. The last thing they deserve is a shout out at this point. So we'll get that cleaned up during this timeout right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC.
The Tuscaloosa Thread News Update is brought to you by Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Tuscaloosa's destination for iconic Jeeps. Find adventure, power, and performance today at Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Hey guys, are you ready to take control of your health, energy, and performance? Primetime Men's Health Clinic is ready to help. Their clinic is built around the idea that men deserve better care. Private and tailored.
All right, sorry guys, man. I don't know I think it's trying to keep. It's still trying to go back to my. I don't know. I think like my actual internet. I'm using a hotspot right now. I mean, why does it keep doing that though? How do I? Let me just disconnect my other one for now. Let's see. In the meantime, if you guys haven't, man, hit that like button. Again, I apologize for the tech difficulties, man. I promise I'm trying to get this cleaned up. It's hard while you're talking during a segment and trying to mess with Wi-Fi at the same time, man. Definitely not easy, but we made it work. Definitely made it work. All right, let me just I want to forget the other network. All right, good deal. Yeah, Reed, Chase. Worst case, if that happens again, man, good call to sending it to, Coach Oates. That way it's not dead air. I appreciate that. Golly, man. If it's not one thing, it's another. All right, let's see. Probably should come up with a plan that way if we're talking to Clint and that happens, that way he's not stranded. Reed, you got permission, man. If that happens when we got Clint on here, man, take over the interview, man. I trust you. I think you know enough ball to ask some good questions, man. I got faith in you, Reed. Don't let us down. Or Chase, whoever's back there. Both of you got tag team it, man. You guys are sports writers, man. You've been trained well, man. You've been trained well. I got faith in you guys. You guys can handle it. Just don't say anything crazy, Reed. Oh man. All right, let me see if I can pull this up. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the latest with the draft stuff, but man, Ty Simpson he's the talk of the draft right now, man. Post combine, and we talked about it last week, man. The combine performance, I think, could really kind of get his name really solidified in that first round conversation. I think at this point, I think a lot of people would agree. I think he's about as close to being I hate saying the word definite, but almost a definite first round pick, or at least closer than he's been thus far. At least that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with a lot of these talking heads, but a lot of people definitely feel that he's positioned himself could be a lot higher than I think people anticipate. We'll talk a little bit about that as well.
All for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, man. All right, I think we got everything all cleaned up. Again, out of my control, unfortunately. I want to say something's down, like in the area, because everything just kind of got knocked off. But that's why you got phones for a mobile hotspot. So God is good, man. We're going to keep on rolling. Shout out to Reed and Chase, man, having that Nate Oates ready to go, man. Again, sometimes you can't control tech issues on live radio, but that's why you have good producers like our two guys, man. Chase and Reed do a heck of a job, man. Shout out to them. All right, we're going to talk about these transfers here in a minute. But first, since we're going to do that with Clint, I'm going to talk about some of the latest with our guys coming out of the combine. I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but there's just so many people, man, chiming in now that the combine is finished. And Reed, Chase, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a lot of people that have been talking about Ty Simpson's combine performance, from Chase Daniel, who's really high on Ty Simpson. Todd McShay, I think he might be he's at the point where I mean, between him and Dan Orlovsky, I think they're almost close to saying Ty Simpson looks a little bit more like, the quarterback one in this draft class than Fernando Mendoza, which I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think number one, with Fernando not throwing at the combine, that gives an edge to a guy like Ty Simpson right now, and I'm not going to sit here and sound like that guy. It's like, oh, because Ty Simpson threw well at the combine that he's automatically going to just bump ahead of Fernando Mendoza. I'm not saying that by any stretch. I mean, there's way more that goes into it. But what I'm saying is, when you're fresh on the mind of the people covering it, all these pundits and analysts, but also the coaches and the scouts, I mean, you're going to be the talk, right? Fernando did not throw. He didn't really participate in the combine physically. He was just there doing interviews and, kind of just doing that whole process. Probably did some medical stuff as well, if I had to guess. That said, Ty is flying up draft charts, it seems like, and I feel like every day he's being projected higher and higher, which on one end, guys, would normally be a great deal, right? That you would be celebrating. But on the other end, when you look at who they're talking about could take him as he gets higher and higher, you start kind of getting a little nervous because we all know how it works. The worst teams, they pick first. That's not always the best case for a young player, especially a quarterback. And then to take it even further, a young quarterback who's got limited starts, so we all can probably agree would benefit from being in a system that's a little bit more set up to where they might not necessarily need him right away. We heard him at the combine when he was speaking on the podium. He's more than confident that he could step in right now and be a franchise guy for a team. But I think it's safe to say, I think the best case scenario would be a Los Angeles spot, would be maybe a Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers ends up coming back. You get what I'm saying. That said, the more he impresses, the more people think that this young man could be hearing his name a lot sooner than a lot of people think. So let's kind of go through some of the latest talking points that we've heard about Ty Simpson since the combine has concluded. Because like I said, I mean, he's just flying up draft charts right now. And I think it makes sense if you go back and you really lock in on what he did, through those, first 8 or so games. There's no denying it. The guy was arguably, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I think that's what people are seeing, because that's what these analysts do, right? They go back, they start from week 1, and they're going to watch each game. They're going to watch all your snaps. They're not just pulling up highlights. They're not just pulling up only the big games. They want to see how you perform each and every week, especially these top prospects. And I think when you do that with a guy like Ty Simpson, you're going to see over the first 8 games or so, I mean, his tape is great. And it sounds like people are doing that with Fernando, and they're kind of like, I mean, not bad, but they're not as blown away. I would argue that I think some people are probably a little bit too down. I mean, for what I've seen out of Fernando, and I have not watched every single game of his like that, but when I have watched him, man, I walked away so impressed with him as well. He's clearly going to be the number 1 quarterback taken, but still really cool seeing Ty getting some much earned love here. But let's start with Chase Daniel, who was breaking down his combine performance. And again, really high on Ty Simpson. This is what he had to say.
It is the NFL draft's best kept secret. All right, here we go. Now we got some play action. Now we got the play action under center sail routes. So this is more of my liking. Go in, touch a little bit before the hash, throw this ball. It's called a pylon route, dime. Best throw of the day. Like this kid is the NFL draft's best kept secret. This is what I'm talking about. Heavy play action, heavy under center, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Get in good base. Watch his base right there. Watch his base, right? It's good. 1 hitch, 2 hits, let it roll. This is a deep pylon route, which means you're going to go touch the back of the pylon. Best throw of the day. That is a dime. That is an NFL dime route. I like the trajectory on the football. I like everything about it. I like the fact that he's in rhythm, right? You probably take 2 hitches because you're reading the outside corner. There's another corner route coming with it in this progression. So you got to imagine all you're seeing is a receiver on the screen running. There's another corner route coming and then a deep pylon route coming. This is a absolutely dime, perfect ball, no notes.
So there you go. Chase Daniel, former NFL quarterback. I want to say he played like 14 years, right? He was very impressed with Ty Simpson's performance, which I think most people could agree arguably had the best performance for a quarterback there in Indy. And we talked about that, those deep balls. That's, a question mark that some people had. His numbers during the season weren't great. Were a couple drops from the receivers, but his deep ball, at least connecting with his guys, just wasn't necessarily there this past season. And I know this is routes on air, but still, when you just look at the mechanics, you look at the ball placement, what he was able to do, a lot different than doing it in the game. We understand that, but still, just showing you have the ability to do it, it definitely turned some heads while he was out in Indy. Now, let's keep moving on, because again, a lot of people are talking about Ty Simpson. This is what came up on a radio show not long ago as well. This is what they had to say.
Kid Ty Simpson from Alabama, I really do appreciate. He didn't play a lot of games at Alabama, but he stayed there, and he got offered $6.5 million to go play for somebody else this year if he wanted to, because he had another year of eligibility, and he turned it down.
Right.
And he turned it down because he wanted to feel like a loyalty to Alabama. He loved Alabama so much, and I think he had a pretty impressive interview with the Jets. I think he did. I don't know whether or not they'll draft him. I'm not really sure where they're going quarterback-wise, but they have done their due diligence. And depending on whether or not Darren Muji has to, go back into the first round and grab one of these quarterbacks that they really like, whether it be Ty Simpson or anybody else, time will tell in that regard. I do believe that everybody out there believes that even though Ty Simpson hadn't played a lot of college football, the fact that he stayed there for 4 years tells you a lot about the young man. And I think that they would believe in the personality first, that kid would be definitely dedicated to being a great football player.
More high praise for former Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. And one last one, Todd McShay, who's really high on Ty Simpson. This is what he had to say after basically just going over Ty, his combine performance, watching his tape. These are his thoughts.
Through 9 games, I will make this statement and I will stand on it. Through 9 games this year, Ty Simpson's tape's better than Fernando Mendoza's. Now, Mendoza went like this and escalated, and Ty Simpson, for those reasons, kind of just fell off. But there are some teams that are looking at that, and I think the Rams are one of them with that first of 2 picks in the first round. And so I don't know that he'll be in the top 10 in that Muck 3.0. But when you get, he'll certainly be in the top 15.
Chances he's gone night 1. All I keep hearing is Fernando's
Absolutely.
the only good quarterback. He's the only one going, but that's never the case.
No, it's never the case. And for Ty, it's not just he's going to get bumped up because there's not other quarterbacks. He's really that good.
What do you like about him? Tell me. Tell me more.
He's like what you look for in the NFL. What you see NFL quarterbacks doing, like the pre-snap, the scheduling. Understanding what defense is doing. He had Ryan Grubb there as his offensive coordinator, a lot of NFL stuff. Recognizing off of the motion what's man and zone, which is not that complicated, but then knowing where to go with the ball post-snap. Then you talk about the arm, and people look at him, he's not that big. He's got a really good arm. You saw some of it during this pro day. I thought it was a no-brainer. He was the best passer at the combine, I should say, and for whatever that's worth. But you can see that raw talent and the anticipation and getting the ball out on time and the toughness. And his dad's an 18-year head coach at Middle Tennessee State. He's been around ball since he was born.
So a lot of praise for former Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. Now, the next question that I have here is it a good thing or a bad thing that Ty's flying up like this? And again, I know it sounds dumb, but when you think about it, when we're talking about flying up, you heard some of the teams that have been mentioned. I don't know if any of these clips mention it, but one team that is now popping up is Cleveland. That I don't know if it's necessarily that they love Ty or what the deal is or the link where that's coming in now, but now that's starting to be thrown out there, which Cleveland is probably the worst place. I think he could probably end up. And listen, I think Ty, with his character and who he is as a person, as a competitor, it's going to work out. However, wherever he goes, he's going to have a chance of having success. But we just know there's a good chance that it could be the opposite if you go to a place like Cleveland. The Jets are now kind of being thrown out there as well. I feel like they're in a better spot than once were, no doubt about it. They've had some really solid young talent over the years, ended up trading, a number of it, still haven't put everything together, but still, I don't think I like that situation for them as well. But Reed, let me ask you this, man. I mean, I wouldn't say if you're Ty, because anybody, they want to get their name called. It doesn't matter. I've been there, so I understand it. You're not going to say, oh, I don't want to go here. Some people might say that. But would you start getting a little nervous if you start hearing your name linked to some of those teams when you initially were like, oh, man, Pittsburgh in the 21st or LA at one point, like, you're like, okay, that sounds pretty good. But when you start hearing Cleveland and New York, like the Jets, would you get a little concerned if you were him, or are you just like, I'm happy for the opportunity?
Christian, if I'm Ty, gosh, man, I've got to be concerned because, like you said, the two teams and just historically, those programs just haven't been great for quarterbacks. And something that I've been emphasizing, not really on your show, but really with Wyatt, and as well as, the rookie report that we do on Thursday night, is Ty needs to sit behind someone. I don't feel like just Ty. I feel like all rookie quarterbacks should. Now, I think Mendoza is going to be a different situation because of how struggling my Raiders are at quarterback right now. But when you just look at the Browns and the Jets, I just, man, it really, it makes me almost feel bad for Ty because credit, he's such a great guy, like you said, character wise. I mean, he's just phenomenal. And on the field, I think he will have success. But I feel like if you put him in the right situation, it'll only practically, in a sense, guarantee success as long as he plays his game.
Yeah, that's fair. And I understand from his perspective, like when you're in these shoes, man, all you want is your name called. Like you really could care less or could not care less who it is that calls your name, what franchise it is, just knowing that, you're a month or so away from living out your dream of playing in the National Football League. It's so exciting. It's also nerve-wracking because it's, the opposite of recruiting. Recruiting, you choose where you go. In the NFL, you don't really have a say. It's basically who chooses you. So I understand he's probably going to just be fired up wherever he goes. But I can't help but wonder, man, at quarterback, it's just a little bit different when you think about Cleveland. And there's some guys that actually have a straight-up approach. The way I'm talking is like majority of players, they just want to hear their name called. But I guess there are some quarterbacks that you'll hear, they say, they kind of shy away. And plus their agents and their camps are probably like, man, I don't know if we want you in that spot. And listen, when you have a track record at quarterback like Cleveland does, I think it's fair to have some genuine concerns. But I don't know, man. And we'll see. But Cleveland, I want to say they pick it like 6. So that would be a lot earlier than initially anticipated. Because if you go back, remember, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about Ty being maybe even a fringe first rounder, right? Depending on him, if a team needs him at quarterback later in the first round, sounded a little bit more, not necessarily accurate, but at the time, that was what people were thinking. Now it's starting to move up all the way to you're hearing he could be taken as a top 10 pick, which goes back to the philosophy that at the end of the day, sometimes you could be more of a late first round value, but based off of team needs and the order of the draft, things can happen. And I think that could be the case with Ty. I would say he probably does settle in that probably, I don't know, mid to late first round pick in terms of a grade. If you just look at his whole deal, talk about tape, his experience, everything, even like some of the injuries and whatnot. I mean, I think it probably settles in that range, but I think he ends up going higher given that I think people are starting to feel really comfortable with him as a prospect. I mean, you heard Todd McShay talk about it. They're going to love the fact that as a quarterback, he's the son of a long-time college head football coach. That's a big deal. They're going to love the fact that he sat here at Alabama. He competed. He worked his tail off until he got his opportunity. He showed out. They're definitely going to fall in love with the fact that he's a very cerebral player at the quarterback position. You heard Todd mention it. What he does pre-snap, his ability to recognize things, decipher what the defense is giving him. And not only that, like he mentioned, it's one thing, using your motions to tell the difference between zone and man coverage, what the defense has got, like the shell that they're in, what they might be disguised. And that's one thing. But to take it a step further, and you're talking about post-snap, where you're really having to read and react and recognize what's coming at you because it's a lot quicker then, right? That's a big deal. And I think he excels in all those areas. And I can only imagine, we talked about this yesterday, he's probably going to be crushing all the board work, all the meetings with these teams when they're testing his football IQ, when he's drawing up plays, when he's breaking down tape. I mean, he's probably going to be one of the best quarterbacks when it comes to doing just that. And I think he has so many positives about him that people are going to feel a lot safer taking a guy like that, even though there are, the limited games that he started and some of the other factors with him. I think they'll be able to overlook a lot of that given what he does have to offer. That just feels like he's, when I say ready for the National Football League, I'm not saying ready right away, but the qualities and the traits that he has makes you feel good about his ability to transition to the next level and be a solid quarterback moving forward. But
hey, Christian, also something else to note as well is that the Jets and the Browns both have 2 first-round picks. So, of course, the Jets have pick the number 2 overall pick and pick 16, while the Browns are sitting at 6, and I believe it's 24.
See, so when you throw that out there, I appreciate that because I did not have the draft order pulled up. I don't see him being the first person. I don't see him being the first pick for either of those teams. I think they have the ability to take. I mean, listen, because there's some good non-quarterbacks in this draft. I know that I think some people are kind of split on this draft class, but when you look at some of these players, I mean, some of the defensive guys, where there's guys like Caleb Downs, the linebackers out of Ohio State. I mean, those are three players out of Ohio State, but all of them to me feel like, like, I'm not gonna say can't miss prospects. I mean, Caleb Downs, I feel like is definitely a guy that you feel really good about. The linebackers, I think you feel good about them. I probably feel better about Caleb than any of them, in my opinion, even though those guys are freaks of an athlete. But there's a number of guys that they could take that they probably could use and then use that second pick to take Ty. And I think that's definitely very possible. But we'll have to see, man. Draft is very interesting, man. There's always funky stuff that goes down. Sometimes teams have to revert, spin back. A team ends up taking somebody or doesn't take somebody, then they end up taking somebody they didn't anticipate taking, but that guy's there, and it all gets kind of wacky on draft day. But that's what makes this whole thing fun to talk about, and we'll definitely keep doing that. But first, we're going to hit a timeout. When we come back, we keep on rolling. We'll dive into this spring ball talk here in a second. What transfers are we going to be paying attention to the most? And what guys do we feel like will have the best chance to make the biggest impact in 2026? We'll talk about that coming up right here. Plus, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson at the top of the hour. All that on Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
After a wreck, the clock starts immediately. The insurance company is already working, protecting themselves, gathering statements, and looking for a reason to deny your claim.
Oh, man. QD, what's up? Ty would have won the Heisman with the run game. Oh, that's an interesting talking point there. We can hit that. That's I would add the running game, but then I also would add if he was able to stay healthy. I would put that in the equation too. I think the injuries, honestly, even without the running game, to be fair, that's a good talking point. We'll talk about that. We got a shorter break when we come back. So that's a good question, QD. I would argue, like, if you had to choose between the two, which ones were more impactful, I would say wouldn't even be the running game so much, because without the running game, we saw what he was able to do through those 8 games, which I know was eventually going to catch up to him. But I think if he was able to stay healthy, the thing is, you're talking about the Heisman, man. At the end of the day, a lot of it does kind of boil down to, what you're doing. Team success helps a lot too, don't get me wrong, but hear me out. I think the fact that the running game wasn't there was going to provide him plenty of opportunities to throw the football. And I think if he was healthy, I think he definitely could have had a good chance of winning that. I think the health probably impacted him a little bit more, but that's a good question. I'll bring it up. What do you guys think? What do you guys in the chat think was more impactful, or would have been more impactful? If we had a running game or Ty was completely healthy, which one of those do you think would have helped solidify him to win the Heisman? Here's what you guys think. Let me be careful with I don't want to mess up the internet, man. I'm like scared to mess with my phone because I'm using the hotspot. I promise you, Xfinity is the worst service of it, man. Always something. He got hurt. Nobody would tell the truth about his health. What do you mean they won't tell the truth about his health? I feel like everybody's been talking about it now. Are you saying like back then, or you? No, I mean right now. I think everything's hell. It's borderline a HIPAA violation. I'm kidding, but no, I was going to say I feel like at this point we know his whole health record, man. Gastritis, fractured rib. Where are the other two? I think there's like 4 things listed on there. Oh, bursitis in the elbow. Oh, back then. Well, you got to remember too. I mean, if you start listing stuff on an injury report like that, which you're supposed to list like injuries that are going to keep guys out. I mean, everybody has minor stuff. Well, not even just minor stuff. Everybody has something. I mean, this guy's playing with, torn rotator cuffs, stuff like that, but they're able to play through it. I don't think you're listing all that kind of stuff. It's only if they're like missing time. But that said, as a quarterback, I think you do want to be careful about what people know. I mean, if they know your quarterback's banged up, best believe he's going to have an even bigger target on his back. So that's probably part of it. I think he got hurt because of the lack of the running game. So you're kind of throwing them both together. I mean, that's fair. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We're getting ready to talk about spring ball again, 1 week away, less than 1 week away. We'll talk about that a little bit more in depth when we get Clint Lamb on the show. Top of the hour. Make sure you guys are tuned in for that. We'll definitely kind of piggyback off of what we were talking about yesterday. Some of these storylines going into spring, competitions that we'll be paying attention to, all that good stuff. We'll break that down with Clint Lamb here in about 20 minutes or so. We're talking NFL draft a little bit right now. We've been talking a lot about Ty Simpson. Pretty much everything's been about Ty Simpson. But real quick, QD had a quick point, and that is QD. If you say it too fast, it might sound like I'm calling him a cutie, man. QD had a good point in the chat. He was asking about Ty Simpson. He said, Ty Simpson, or this is what he threw out there. He said, Ty Simpson would have won the Heisman if Alabama had a running game this past season. I thought that was an interesting take, and I want to get y'all's thoughts on that. We asked the chat, we got some, but these are my thoughts on that. I think that definitely would have. We know how impactful a running game would be, especially on a quarterback, opening things up even more, and I think it could have had an impact. But my argument, or my, I guess, take on that was, if I had to pick between that and the injuries that he was facing, I would argue that the injuries had more of an impact. And I think personally, if he was able to stay healthier throughout the season, he probably would have kept himself in that position of potentially winning himself a Heisman. I mean, at one point he was pushing for that front running spot for the Heisman, and then I'd say probably about, what would you say, guys? What, maybe around South Carolina week, maybe the week prior? I don't know. It kind of slowly started that trend. And I don't remember exactly. Did they announce, Reed, when he got hurt, or did he ever say that? Like what point it was? Did we start to pinpoint that, or we don't know?
I don't exactly remember, but Christian, I kind of want to also put this out there.
Go ahead.
So I think you also got to take into consideration with that question, if Ty Simpson, which I agree, if he didn't get hurt, I think that is the main contributor. But because of the lack of run game, couldn't we say that is also partially the reason of why he maybe got hurt, because he was forced to throw the ball, and they were having to do more of a pass heavy offense, and because of the lack of lack of the rushing game. If there was more of a rushing game, hypothetically, right speaking, maybe he wouldn't have got hurt. Maybe they hand off the ball a little bit more, and maybe his body stays a little bit more fresh. I just think that's at least another narrative you got to kind of think about.
Yeah, well, that, and I think better protection always helps too. I mean, let's just, face it. We talked about it with Landon Tengwall yesterday. I mean, it was weird because there were some games where protection really wasn't terrible. If you go back and watch the tape, protection wasn't terrible, but there would be like, it's always like this in football. We talk about it all the time. It's always like one guy. But I would argue there were sometimes the offensive line they were pretty decent in protection, but then the backs would have some games or some moments where, like Oklahoma, right? That first Oklahoma game in Tuscaloosa. I mean, if I remember correctly, the one sack with Michael Carroll, right? Again, young guy out there, the edge guy, had beautiful cross chop. And I know it was a long developing play, so I mean, we could sit here and argue Ty held the ball too long. The routes were still long developing. I mean, it was what it was. A young tackle. He got beat off the edge. It's going to happen. And then he got sacked there. But the other two, if I'm not mistaken, there might have been one more, but I do know you had Daniel Hill. He got the small corner, like he bowled him, right? Now ended up being a sack. Earlier in the game, I want to say Jam or one of the other backs gave up a sack. So what I'm getting at is I almost think I think it's everything combined. It's just, and it's hard to pinpoint which one was the biggest factor. Yes, I mean,
I agree.
To your point, Reed, when you don't have a running game and you're putting more on your quarterback's shoulders, yeah, I mean, to be fair, let's talk about the bursitis in his elbow. And again, shout out to Andrew Sports Medicine. They're one of our partners here on the show. They took great care of me when I was in school. Make sure you guys use them for any type of needs that you have in that department. They will definitely get you patched up and back rolling. But I'm not a doctor, and nor do I work for Injury Sports Medicine, but from what I do know about the game of football, the mechanics of throwing the football, I would imagine like the bursitis in his elbow, there's a good chance that that could have been from a lot of usage, a lot of throwing, right? That motion. And I could be totally wrong. It could have been from something else. Maybe he fell on his arm a certain way. But regardless, I think, yes, to your point, when you're playing a lot of snaps and when you're throwing the ball 40 plus times a game, yeah, you're probably going to start having a lot more wear and tear. So I think that's part of it, a direct correlation with the running game not really being there, or the lack of it, or lack of consistency with that, or the lack of number of carries, whatever you want to classify it as. Then I also think, he was getting beat up, even like the second Oklahoma game. Remember, like the first half? I mean, goodness, man. Dude was running for his life the whole first half. So I think it was a number of things. But I think, yeah, if we sit here and say, if you improve a little bit in each of those areas, I think there is a good chance that Ty could have won the Heisman Trophy this past season. I thought it was one of the, no disrespect to the players, but I thought it was a little bit of a weak Heisman class, if I'm just being completely honest. I mean, the past few years, when you see guys, and there's some good players. Like Jeremiah Love was an incredible running back, but like Ashton Genty, the numbers he put up were kind of crazy. Then you had Travis Hunter, a couple years ago, doing it on both sides of the football. I think this past year was a little underwhelming. I think it would have been the year for a guy like Ty to win it, but unfortunately, yeah, I think the injuries and all that stuff kind of caught up to him. But speaking of that, it was interesting, hearing Landon talk about some of those factors last season. And when he pulled up the numbers in terms of the pressure, then even I think the stat that stood out to me while we're talking about this offense, guys, is when he talked about the rushing statistics for DeBoer's offenses over the years. I hadn't gone that far. You guys know me, man. I'm not the biggest stats guy. Really lean heavily on tape. Probably should start looking even more into stats. But it was interesting. And when you look at it, it really painted the picture that, to be fair, this is what I'm getting at. I think for Alabama fans, I think the best thing for this team and the best thing for fans that kind of like in terms of their expectations is that you're not going to get that dominant running game more than likely out of this offense, out of these, this staff that we have right now, because their scheme is just that's not really who they are. Landon stats kind of painted that picture. Yeah, they had a 1,000-yard rusher at Washington, but the reality is, it's definitely a pass-oriented offense, right? The running game, as long as it's serviceable, I think will give you a chance. And I think that's what they should strive for. And I think that's what fans should probably start to try to maybe reset their expectations to. And I think it would make a lot more sense, because I think part of the reason you see so many frustrations when we talk about the running game is because when you think of Alabama, you just think of Alabama downhill, dominant, physical running game. And while that would be amazing to have, it's kind of hard to be elite in every single thing. And if you're a pass happy offense, in all likelihood, you're not going to probably be that dominant running team anyway. But if you can find a way to be serviceable, and when you do it, effective and still be physical, I'm not saying you don't do it, it's just going to look a little bit different. I think that's what they need. And I think when fans they recalibrate those expectations a little bit, I think it'll probably make a little bit more sense, and they won't be as frustrated. And the only reason I bring that up is because when he put up those numbers, I'm like, dang, when you see that, it makes sense. This offense, and we kind of knew that, but sometimes you kind of forget about it just because you see the Alabama, right? The Alabama helmets, the script day and all that, and you're expecting one thing, and it's still a little bit different as you get used to that. But I think you can be successful the way they do it. It's just they have to find a way to at least get it to be serviceable. Like Landon said yesterday, 129th, even if you are pass heavy, that's just not going to cut it. You can't get away with that. But if you can find a way to be in that 60th ranked range, I would say that I would assume you're probably averaging around 150 plus at that point. And I think that's more than capable of assisting you in that passing game and really bring things balanced like you need them to be. So I don't know, just some thoughts there. And we'll talk more about that with Clint here in a minute. But first, we got to hit a timeout. When we come back, we got one more segment for the top of the hour. Then we'll be joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Talk about these transfer portal guys and more. Some spring storylines coming up right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230. WTBC. Quick timeout. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
It's a crime to pay more than one dime.
That Mizzou game sack. Which one? Is it like to start the second half? Is that the one you're talking about, QD? Let's take this off. I feel like there's a few tough sacks that he took. Some say he got injured in that Missouri game. That was an early one, right? I mean, in Missouri, we played them pretty early. So do you trust the coaches to fix the run game problem? Man, it's a tough. That's a tough thing for me to answer right now without seeing anything just yet. Just because, I mean, I know we hired a new offensive line coach, all the new faces on the team. It's hard for me to say in terms of like, just but I guess your question is, do I trust that? I trust that it's going to be better. One way or another, I think it's going to be better. Even if it's just a little bit better, I don't expect it taking some huge leap, if I'm being honest with you. But I do think it should be a little bit better. I just can't envision a world where that's just not a huge emphasis this offseason. I just can't, man. Like these coaches, man, I mean, they coached that Washington team to a national championship game. I mean, they've been successful. Hell, doesn't Ryan Grubb have an offensive line background to him? I think he was like an offensive line coach at some point. I think they find a way to improve it. That's why I'm talking about, I guess changing your expectations. I just don't think it's going to be some dominant running game. I just don't think you get that out of this offense. It's not really what this offense is. We better be in the top 100. No, I mean, you definitely need to be in the top 100, which is definitely doable, man. I mean, like, just like I talked about we talked about it with Landon yesterday, man. And hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying when I say this. Like, when I talk about simplifying it, that just means, man, you just have to instead of having, it's almost like, what's the saying? If you're like a jack of all trades, but a master of none, we run a lot of different concepts. Like if you pull up the tape, man, we do run a lot of different run concepts. And then you add on to that, the rotation we added offensive line. There just wasn't, I guess, much consistency from a play calling standpoint, and then also even from a personnel standpoint. And I just think if you could just say, look, man, we got good enough players. I mean, we might not have elite players necessarily, but we've got good enough players that can be physical, that can move. See what I'm talking about, Dwight? You see a top 60, man. I mean, yeah, I agree. That should be the goal. But again, we're talking about an offense that, matter of fact, let me pull up Landon's video. He had that stat. Like, I just don't think it's just not really what you're going to get out of this offense. Let's see. Let me pull up Landon's. I just don't think that's what this offense is. Not saying they can't adjust it. I mean, listen, when you had, well, let me think, because when you had Milroe, it was definitely a lot better. But again, that's a totally different deal. I mean, you got a quarterback who was responsible for probably at least 60% of the rushing yards. Where is this number? Hold on. Not that stat. Wait, did he not put it up there? I thought he put it up there. Maybe he just mentioned it. Maybe he didn't put it up there. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We're talking all things Alabama football right now. In a few minutes, we will be joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. We definitely will dive deeper into these transfers and who will have the biggest impact of the 2026 season out of all the new faces. I was trying to find that part of Landon's video where he was talking about the numbers over the years of the rushing numbers of Kalen DeBoer's offense. This stat that he did put up was the quarterback pressure rate, and you did see it rise over the last couple of seasons. Now, it did drop a little bit with Milroe in 2024. It was at 33.4%, the highest of any Coach DeBoer team over the last 6 seasons, but then it dropped a little bit, a little over 3%. In 2025 with Ty Simpson, still was 30.3%. So they definitely got to still work on that as well. At the end of the day, we all know. I mean, that's all, offensive line, backs as well a little bit. They got to be better in pass pro, but still, I think those will definitely be some points emphasis. But I was trying to find the stat about the rushing yards. So basically, what he was saying was, I mean, it's never been like this, ground and pound attack from a coach to board led team. They're definitely going to lean towards their passing game, which is fine, but you definitely just got to be a little more consistent. Let me try to pull this up real quick. The top Russian teams, because the stat that he did put up that was interesting. I do remember this part was when he was mentioning it doesn't have to be. We're talking about resetting expectations. It doesn't necessarily have to be, some 180-yard average team, to get where you want to be. He pulled up the last 4 SEC national champions and what their rushing yards per game were. Georgia had the highest in 2022, 14th ranked nationally in rushing yards, 21. They were 39th. 2020 was Alabama and they were 48th nationally. In 2019, LSU was 51st. So that was his point. If you can kind of crack that top 50, top 60 range, historically, you're in a pretty good position. You don't necessarily have to be, when we say dominant, but you know what's weird? And I was thinking this when we were talking about this. Even when I see those teams, you talk about 50, like LSU, they definitely threw the ball a good bit. With Joe Burrow, I do remember that. I mean, I forgot how many yards he threw for, but it was a lot. Mac Jones, we threw for a lot of yards that season. I want to say he broke some records, and there's a reason that Smitty won the Heisman and all that stuff. So to me, it makes sense why you're in the 50s and the 40s, but I think this is just off of rushing yards per game. The only thing I'll say about this stat is that if you take into consideration, like I just mentioned, in 2019 and 2020, the volume of passing that was being done by those teams, inevitably they're going to be a little bit further. I think if we were to pull up the full stat sheet and look at basically how those teams actually like efficiency, so to speak, or like per rush, you get what I'm saying, guys? Not just total rushing yards or on average total per game. I think it would be a little bit different. Basically like yards per carry. I'm curious to see what those stats would be from these years, because when I think back in 2020, and I don't have the stats pulled up, but that was that Najee Harris in 2020? Do I have that right, Reed? Who was the starter back or the key back? Do you remember by chance?
I want to agree with you. I just get, especially when like the whole COVID situation, I get all my years mixed up, but I want to say yes.
I want to say, so I know 2019, Najee Harris was definitely there because I remember he had the hurdle against South Carolina. I went to that game. We had I was with the Panthers and we played on a Monday, I believe. So I was free that weekend or something like that. Anyway, he was there in 19 for sure, but 2020, I want to say Najee was still there. But what I'm getting at is we had some good backs. And if I remember correctly, we ran the ball really well. So 48th was probably more so, hey, we also had Devontae Smith and all the rideouts in 2020. We just probably were throwing the ball so much that we didn't run it as much because of that. Georgia in 21 and 22, they definitely were run-heavy teams. I think it shows, especially in 22 with them being 14th. So I'll have to pull that up during the break, but I will just mention that. I think factors are a little bit different depending on each team and kind of who they were as a team personnel-wise. But anyway, we got to hit a timeout. We'll keep this conversation going, but when we come back, we'll be joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we got Clint coming up. You guys always enjoy that, so make sure you guys are ready for that. We'll keep on rolling right here, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265CG Tuscaloosa, a Town Square media station. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
From the Fox Sports Studios in Los Angeles, here's Steve DeSager.
The NBA's late game Monday night went to the Clippers, coming back at Golden State.
Let me pull up that 2020 depth chart real quick. Agent, what's up, man? The boy looks like he's eating good at Washington. I wonder how the food is out there, man. How's the food out in Washington? I don't think I've been there. Washington. I've been to Oregon for a camp, but I've never been to Washington. Let's see. Let me pull up. Yeah, 2020. Oh, they had to be Najee Harris. I want to say it was Najee, but who else would have been in that? Let me see. 2020 Alabama football. We'll do stats because I want to see everybody that was there. Yeah, 129th last year. That's wild, man. But again, I guess the point I'm trying to make, and I don't know why I can't explain it the way I want to explain it, but when you throw the ball a lot, you're not expecting to have a top 25 rushing attack. I mean I don't know. I mean, I guess what did Indiana finish at? Because Indiana was, I think they ran for like 200 and something on the ground. They threw the ball really well, but let's see, Alabama in 2020. Averaged 183.6 yards per game. But there you go. Per rush was 5 yards. 5 yards per carry. We averaged 5 yards a carry in 2020. That's what I was trying to get at. Like, I think if you look at per rush, that's probably a better stat to look at. So yeah, we were 48th in 2020, but when you're averaging 5 yards a carry, man, you're very effective. You know. Let's see. Let's change the year. Let's go to 2021. It was 4.1 yards a carry. Let's see. 2022, 5.6 yards per carry. Damn, we averaged 195 on the ground. Who was there in 22? Was that B-Rob that year? 23, we averaged 4.3. That was with Milrow at quarterback. I think, Jace McClellan. 24, 4.6 yards a carry. And last year was 3.4 yards a carry. All right, cool. We got Clint.
Edge with 4-time SEC champion and 2-time national champion Christian Miller.
Once again with Christian Miller taking him down.
Here's college football playoff national champion Christian Miller on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 a.m. WTBC.
And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We've been talking a lot about Ty Simpson. Draft stock is rising by the day. A lot of teams have been really impressed with what they've seen out of him at the NFL Combine. I'm assuming in the meetings he's been crushing it, and he keeps hearing more and more about his draft stock rising. So we've been talking about that, talking a little bit about Alabama, piggybacking off of some of the conversation with Landon yesterday regarding the offensive line. And now we're going to go to the phone lines, and we're joined by our guest every Tuesday from Cover Crimson. We got our guy, Clint Lamb. Clint, man, welcome in. How's everything going, brother?
It's going good, man. How you doing today, brother?
Man, I can't complain, man. Can't complain. I hope you're feeling better. I saw what you said on Twitter. You're under the weather, man. I appreciate you hopping on here because I know you're still busy doing your stuff, and I know it's not easy talking for hours and hours when you're not feeling great. So I appreciate you still jumping on here, man.
Oh, absolutely, brother. Yeah, just dealing with a little bit of cold, and as you know, in this business, when 90% of your job is talking, the cold hits you a little different. But yes, we're a few days in, so I feel like we're on the other side of it. So I appreciate it, brother.
Good deal, man. Well, good. Well, if you need a breather or something, man, just let me know, man. I won't hold you too long because I know you got to rest back up, recharge. We're a week out, less than a week out from spring ball, Clint. That's where I wanted to start, man. There's a lot of different storylines going on when you look at spring ball. There's a number of transfers coming in. Curious to see how those guys kind of get assimilated here in the program. And I know they've been really pleased with what they've seen out of the guys just in winter workouts, which I know is a lot different than actually practicing, but a lot of names have been coming up about guys stepping up, being, leaders on this team and just kind of taking charge in their new roles here. But we'll start there, Clint. Going into spring, man, you got a number of new players on this team via the transfer portal. What transfers are you most excited to getting your eyes on this upcoming spring? And who do you think could potentially be putting themselves in position to maybe have the biggest impact going into 2026?
That's a great question. I think probably for me, the offensive line, I would really like to see a lot of those transfers, see how they're doing. But you're talking about guys at the top that I'm most intrigued to see. The two that immediately comes to mind are Devin Tompkins along the defensive line and then Caleb Woodson at linebacker. I just think that Devin Tompkins, what he could potentially bring to the table as far as being an interior pass rusher, I think that he's got some special traits there as a run stopper. Obviously, he needs to continue to work on the consistency. I don't know if they'll have him play Bandit. I'm very curious to see where, who's playing where. And that's probably one of the top questions that I have going in is, who ends up playing Bandit or at least getting snaps at Bandit once practice gets underway. But Tompkins, as Kelby Collins got more comfortable and got a little bit more healthy this past season, you started to see his role grow. I could see Devin Tompkins having a similar impact, obviously to more of an extent, because I think he's going to be further up your depth chart. But as far as what he started to provide as far as being a complimentary interior pass rusher, I see some of that with Devin Tompkins, and I think that's something that Alabama is really relying on him to provide in 2026. So he would definitely be one. And then the other one is Caleb Woodson, because when I saw Woodson on tape, I thought his 2025 tape was okay. I thought his 2024 tape was a lot better, but I still didn't see like a surefire, guaranteed to start type of player. But as I've started to think about the situation and kind of how it played out and the fact that Alabama targeted him early and, all these fans, and analysts and stuff were talking about how they needed to add some experience at linebacker and add an impact player at linebacker. And I think a lot of us just simply overlook Caleb Woodson. And so I'm curious to see what, how he looks in Kane Lomnick's defense. How comfortable is he as far as, is he running with the ones pretty much in the jump, or are they going to make him earn it? Is he just simply a part of the plans, or is he one of the guys, if not the guy at that position? Like, that's another one I'm really curious to see how that all ends up playing out. But those are the two that probably stand out the most right now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. That was on the thumbnail, man. Those are the two. I also threw Javen James in there. I had to add an offensive guy, but yeah, Tompkins and Woodson, man. Those are the exact guys that I put on there because I was thinking the same thing, And when I first saw Tompkins, I probably picked the worst game to start with, the Iowa game. They run the ball a whole bunch. I want to say their offensive line won the Joe Moore Award, and he struggled, when he was in that role. I mean, which they had him at a 3 technique. Sometimes he was in the shade, playing like a nose. Other times he was standing up on the edge. But when he was in that interior spot against the run and a team like Iowa, who they're just running the ball down your throat, man. It definitely was a little bit of a challenge for him. So when I started there, I was a little concerned. But then getting to see I think it was the Oregon tape and the Michigan tape and some others, I started to kind of see a lot more flashes out of him. And now I am really curious, like you just said, Bandit, which he's kind of a tweener, man, little big on the Bandit side of things. But then on the interior, size-wise, I think he's okay, but I just don't think he holds up to the point of attack when he's, demanding double teams and whatnot. So I'm very curious about that. But you mentioned the Bandit spot. I want to ask you about a guy that I feel like I've kind of overlooked, and then going back and watching some of these games, like Eastern Illinois, trying to get a grasp on some of these younger players that we have returning. I've been looking at so many transfers. I forgot about some of the guys coming back, but Cavante Henry, man, watching his tape coming out of JUCO or wherever he transferred from last year, man, I was really impressed with his explosiveness. I mean, that first step that he has, he's just a very impressive athlete when you watch him, the way he moves. And then when I saw him here on campus and just kind of being around, the guys at practice and whatnot, I think it was a little bit of a learning curve. He was kind of behind, and that's why you saw more of Keon Keeley and some of these other guys at the Bandit spot last year. But he did start carving out, some more reps here and there as the season progressed. But then watch him against Eastern Illinois, and yes, I know it's Eastern Illinois and it was later in the game, but just watch, he just kept flashing to me on tape, like the tools that he has, like that first step off the football, his ability to strike and be very strong at the point of attack. And then even just his motor running to the ball, man. I think he had like 3 or 4 plays in a row that I was like, damn, like, if you can really get this guy to grasp things and then really get him up to speed, I think he could be a good player. Have you gone back and saw a little bit more on him? And just what are your thoughts about him going into this year? Because personally, I think he's a candidate for somebody that I haven't talked about much. I don't think the media's mentioned him too much either. But I think he could end up being a decent player this upcoming season if he can put everything together.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's definitely someone that I brought up as far as he feels like the typical overlooked guy. You know, I really like Jamarian Matthews. I like Nolan Wilson. We've talked about Devin Tompkins potentially playing Bandit, and that's one where the reason that I was kind of comparing him to Kelby Collins is all last offseason we were debating, okay, is Kelby going to kind of move back outside because we had heard that he wanted to play outside. He had slid inside for Florida. And then he ended up pretty much exclusively playing inside for Alabama, or at least he would slide out some in those 30 fronts. But you know, we're having the same conversation about Devin Tompkins. We don't know if he's going to play there, but he's a transfer option. You got Ben Zulu, another transfer. But Henry, you know, when I saw him on the JUCO level, I thought he was a very disruptive B and C gap player. I thought from a pass rushing perspective, I think you hit the nail on the head. That first step quickness. I kind of plays with a relentlessness, but I think it just took him a little bit of time as far as getting the playbook down. But you did start to see, even against, I want to say it was against Tennessee. I know he played some snaps against South Carolina, and I think he played, it wasn't many snaps if he did, but against LSU as well. You started seeing him actually get some meaningful action in some of these football games. And so that kind of, as I started thinking about that and then going back and watching him, you also got to understand that he was, you know, a 220-pound JUCO guy. I think by the time he got to Alabama, he was a lot closer to 240, like 238 or 239. But he ended up playing at 268 pounds, or at least that's what he was listed at on the roster. And so adding that type of weight, where it was anywhere from 30 to 50 pounds, you know, compared to where he had played on the JUCO level, you had to think there had to be some time to acclimate or adjust to that type of game. And I think that as he got more comfortable in the defense, as he got more comfortable in his new body, I think you started to see some flashes. Obviously, need more consistency out of him, but I do think that in those situations, those obvious passing situations, I'm always kind of trying to keep tabs on who the coaching staff was turning to and giving those opportunities to. And Kevontae Henry, at multiple points, he was one of those guys that were getting some of those snaps. So I'm intrigued by him for sure. I think we are sleeping on him a little bit compared to some of these other guys. And the fact that he was, you know, Alabama had 4 bandits last year, and the top 3 are gone. He was the 4th guy. And so I think that causes a lot of fans and stuff to kind of forget about him. But I completely agree with you. I don't think that we should at all. At this point, he's the one guy that I'm 99.9% certain is going to be playing bandit. Everybody else, you know, maybe Ben Zulu plays Wolf. Maybe Devin Tompkins plays on the interior. You never know what's going to happen with Jamarian Matthews. I do think he's got the ability to eventually add mass and play a 3-tech. And I even think Nolan Wilson, to an extent, could also do some of that stuff. But, I mean, Henry is going to be a bandit, and I think he will have the opportunity. I don't know if it'll be a starting role. I could see it being a starting role, but at bare minimum, at least a pretty key rotational piece at that position.
Yeah, 1,000%. That's at least what I was thinking, too. I mean, he's going to carve himself out a much greater role, and he's got the tools, man. I mean, there's just some guys that just have that athleticism, that motor, and that you're like, man, like, we just got to get him to put it together. And I think that is something they should really lock into this offseason, because I think he could end up being a really solid contributor for this defense. We're joined by Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Make sure you guys check out all their great work if you haven't already. Cover Crimson on any podcast platform where you get any of your content from. Also on YouTube there as well. Clint R. Lamb on X is his handle, and how you can find him. I'm sure you guys have already found him before, but if you haven't, definitely check out the stuff that they do. Clint, I want to ask you about this quarterback battle, man. And we hadn't talked too much about it because I know it's going to be the talk of the whole offseason. So we've been trying to be a little patient with it. That way we didn't get quarterback battle fatigue. But we're right around the corner, man. I want to get your thoughts going into spring, because the next time we talk to you, man, spring ball will be kicked off. But right now, as things sit, man, I'm sure you've had time to go back and watch some of those guys. Is there a guy that you're kind of leaning towards? Not necessarily that's going to win the job, but just kind of what's your I guess vibe with the quarterback battle? I mean, Austin Mack, a lot of people excited about him. He's an older player, been in this system under Kalen DeBoer for quite some time. I mean, you talk about the size and stature that he brings. I mean, there's so much to like about him, and he looked pretty good when he came in for injured Ty Simpson against Indiana. But then you got the undeniable freshman and Keelan Russell, who is just, he's got what I call that it factor. You just watch the ball come off his hand, and it's just smooth, it's quick. I mean, he's able to make these plays kind of, and I'm not comparing him to Bryce Young, but just kind of hear me out, Bryce Young-esque in terms of sometimes the way he, navigates the pocket. He feels pressure. He rolls out. And that one play that he hit that guy after scrambling outside the pocket, I can't remember what game it was, but I think it was earlier in the year. But he's just special, man. But those guys are going to be going at it. From your standpoint, Clint, how do you think it goes, at least for the spring period of this thing? Because I think it's going to go all the way into fall camp.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely going to go into fall camp. I don't see any reason. Well, I guess I would understand if they wanted to go ahead and name a starter and have everybody rally around that player all throughout the offseason and go ahead and let them take a leadership role. But I just think the trade-off based off of, I mean, if one of them establishes themselves, as a head and shoulders better option, then, maybe. But I just think that it's going to be neck and neck. I think you got two very capable options. There's going to be growing pains with both players. There's no doubt about it. And fans need to understand that. Just like I think in the beginning stages, to an extent, you saw some growing pains from Ty Simpson in that Florida State game. He grew up fast and obviously really started to improve from that point forward. And he was much better in that game than a lot of people give him credit for. But, he was a new starter. And so even a guy like Austin Mack, and the fact that he does have some meaningful action, it's very limited. Defenses haven't really had a chance to game plan against him. And granted, there's not a whole lot of tape on him. So, as far as preparing for his skill set and what he's going to bring to the table, that still will be difficult in the early stages from the other side of things. But I just think that, once again, you got two really good options there in that room. And what I liked about Keelan is that he is an elite playmaker. He has such a great feel for risk taking and kind of when to press the envelope and how to press the envelope versus, some other guys who it's like we question, okay, why are you trying to fit that football in that window? I think that sometimes there will be times where you watch Keelan Russell and you'll say, man, that was pretty risky. But I think he's got a great understanding of what defenses are doing, or at least he did on the high school level. I think the field vision, which is something that Ryan Grubb has talked about with him, seeing things, being able to process things, and then you got a three-level thrower of the football. He's got accuracy and ball placement. He can change arm angles and throw off platform. Plus, he brings that mobility factor. I just think he's the complete package. And I think Austin Mack getting too far off. I mean, from a size and a mobility and an arm strength perspective, he was kind of built in a lab in a lot of ways. And I did see him improve as far as the decision making and not putting the football in harm's way, when he came in there against Indiana versus what I had seen back in the spring. So, I mean, as long as he's growing on that front and he's becoming more confident, I think he's certainly capable of holding off or fending off Keelan Russell for the job. But just watching Russell and then people that I've talked to in the program, you just feel like he's a very special talent. And they're both really good talents. But, there's a reason that Keelan was as rated as high as he was. Is he ready? That's going to be the biggest question. But I'm certainly looking forward to it. I think you got two really capable options. I think that they both fit this offense and what they're going to want to do offensively. And so while there's inexperience and you kind of worry about that playing behind that inexperienced offensive line, you also, the upside with the two quarterbacks is tremendous. And I think there's a lot of upside with the offensive line as well. So once again, there will be some growing pains, but I fully expect this offense to eventually pick things up and become the dynamic group that we're all anticipating or expecting from Ryan Grubb and Taylor DeBoer.
Clint, I'm going to put you in a tough spot here, man. You're the head coach at Alabama. Coach Lamb is overseeing this unit. You got those two guys battling it out, Clint. If it's neck and neck and you're almost like, man, I mean, both these guys have done some really good stuff, and you're all the way through fall camp, and you got to choose which guy you're going to roll with. The reason I'm asking this question is, we had Landon on, and he feels that, Keelan is the guy you need to roll with. He's the future. He's the young guy. He feels like you need to just go ahead and just let him get those early reps, go through those growing pains, because I think we all can agree. And listen, as great as Austin Mack, I think, can be as a quarterback, I just, from seeing both those guys, Keelan Russell has a higher ceiling. I mean, it is what it is. And I understand the point that, hey, you might deal with some growing pains a little bit more. Like you said, you're going to deal with them with either guy, but the younger guy, there might be a few more. But, once you kind of get there to the promised land, he's probably the guy that can kind of take you to that next level at the quarterback spot. What do you do, Clint, if you're the head coach at Alabama and it is neck and neck like that? Do you go with the young guy who is probably going to be the future, or do you take the approach where, might be a little bit safer with the guy who's a little bit older in Austin Mack? What would you do, Clint?
I think that's a real tough position to be in because there's a part of me that I lean Keelan Russell. I think he's going to ultimately win the starting job, and I completely agree with you. I think the ceiling is higher. What I would want from him, and I think the way that you get the most out of that room leading into next season is you make Keelan Russell take it. You know, you don't default to him if it's, and granted, that's why I say if it's kind of neck and neck, the respect factor and the fact that he's been loyal and been around, it would make you lean Austin Mack. And it's like, well, you know, Russell, you're going to have to do enough to show us you were clearly the better option. You have to take this job from Austin Mack. I think that would not only elevate the competition in that room and make both players better, but also I feel like that the teammates, if he earns it, then they'll more so understand it. You know, he's a couple of years younger, or I guess, yeah, I don't know how old Austin Mack is. I know he reclassified, so it might not be a couple of years. He hadn't had this, you know, Austin Mack's going into year 4 compared to Keelan Russell going into year 2. So, you know, there might be some people in that room that, you know, feel like, well, if it's neck and neck and it's pretty even, you know, you need to go with a guy who's been around longer. But at the same time, I feel like that if you did go ahead and go to Keelan Russell, while that might have some downsides, I think ultimately you are positioning yourself for much better long-term success. And I guess a lot of it could depend on how they view the rest of the roster. Number one, how's the offensive line progressing? And if they do feel like Keelan Russell is the future and you want to put him in a position to be successful, do you put him behind an offensive line that's struggling as he's trying to acclimate and adjust to being the starter? Do you go ahead and put him out there and say, hey, let's let this entire unit gel and grow together as an offense, and there will be growing pains, but if you can go ahead and do that, by the time you're getting the effective play out of the offensive line as they get experience, well, your quarterback's got that experience now too, and he's ready to rock and roll. Like, there's multiple ways of looking at it, and I feel like I'm being unfair because I'm really not answering the question. Once again, I would lean Keelan Russell. And so I know that by default, in that situation, if it's neck and neck, I would be trying to, you know, give myself any reason to go with Keelan Russell. But I also understand there are a lot of benefits to lean towards Austin Mack.
No doubt. Yeah, and that's why I said I'm going to put you on the spot, man. It's a tough one. I'll be honest. If it was me, I'm in the same boat. It's hard to really say, but the more I kind of think on it, I'm like, man, when you have a young guy like that and you just know it's in there, like you said, make him earn it. And once you get to that point, something just about him, I just feel like if you're talking about getting to, you know, the point where you're making deep runs in the playoffs, again, we're right around that cusp. We made it to the playoffs, won the first game, and then we lost to the team that won the national championship game. It's not that far off anyways, but I just feel like if you want to continue that or build off of that, a guy that just has that it factor, I just think he's going to be able to take you a little bit further, in my opinion, even though I know like folks in the comments say, you know, experience with Trump talent, and that is true. But to be fair, you know, neither of them really played. One guy's older, so they kind of both started on the same foot in terms of true experience. But I want to ask you real quick, just got 2 more things for you, Clint. And I appreciate you joining us again. We got Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson here joining us. Make sure you guys check them out. YouTube, all podcast platforms. Cover Crimson is where you can find him, at Clint R. Lamb for his personal. Yesterday, when we had Landon Tengwall on here, we talked in depth about the offensive line. He gave us his starters, or his projected starters. Now, I'll just read them out for him. I think he mentioned y'all at Talk, so you probably heard these, but he had Javen James at left tackle, Will Sanders at left guard, Rayson Delgardy at center, Ethan Fields at right guard, and Michael Carroll, the very talented true freshman from last season, at right tackle. What are your thoughts on those projected starters? Anybody that you would say maybe you would swap out or think there could be a different name in one of those spots, or are you like that list that he had?
You know, I think Ethan Fields is just really interesting because I think he is an experienced player from just being, you know, having multiple years in an SEC program. Doesn't have a whole lot of playing experience, obviously, but that certainly helps. And I think that he does some good things, especially in the run game. But just when I looked at guys like Nick Brooks, who definitely has some major problems he's got to overcome, and some of these other guys, I still view them as potentially being the better player than Fields. Now, granted, Landon, he was an offensive lineman. You know, you being an edge guy and playing, you know, being a pass rusher and stuff, anytime I've got a take on an offensive lineman or a pass rusher, if one of you two guys push back on it, I mean, I certainly respect y'all's opinion, because one thing is I haven't been there. I haven't done it myself. And I do think to some extent that is always limiting when you're trying to evaluate. But I don't really see it as much with Fields as Landon does, but I once again respect his opinion. I would probably say that it could be a number of different guys. Right guard, to me, is the one that's probably the most up in the air. Left tackle, it's either going to be James or it's going to be Lloyd. I think Sanders, now granted, you can start talking about Fields and Brooks and maybe Matt Waldrop and Caden Strayhorn, but I feel like Will Sanders right now has a pretty good lead on the left guard spot. Delgatti and Strayhorn and maybe Waldrop battling it out at center. And then Michael Carroll at right tackle right now, that's where I expect him to stick. So, he's going to start there at right tackle in my opinion. But, I like Ty Haywood a lot. The fact that we haven't seen him other than 15 snaps on the college level, it would probably be unfair for me to project him to be Alabama's starter, but I think he's a guard. I think he can play tackle, but I think he could be a really good offensive guard, both from a pass protection standpoint and a run blocking standpoint. I think he provides a lot of what they're looking for, and I think the coaching staff views him as an interior player as well. I don't know if they'll give him a chance to play where he wants to play to start, but I would probably lead Ty Haywood right now, but there are a number of different players who will push for those two guard spots, and that's probably one of the most intriguing battles, once spring is underway.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think everybody's going to be looking there. And to be fair, when he mentioned Ethan Fields, I was a little shocked too, because I never got a chance to really see much of him, because when I just saw he hardly played, I didn't really know where to start. But then I realized you could just go to the bios and just see how many snaps they played in each game. But watching his cut up when we were talking with him, I will say I was impressed by in the run game. He did honestly impress me, probably more so than a number of the guys that I watched coming in. That said, very limited tape on the, I guess, pass pro snap. So I need to go back and look at that. But I was a little bit more impressed than I initially thought. So I did want to go back and actually pay a little bit more attention to it. But I think Nick Brooks, like you said, there's definitely a number of things very raw. But I think if you can kind of get them up to speed, it's going to be interesting to see who takes over. And like you said, there's going to be so much competition. I don't know when that whole thing's going to end. It's probably just going to be, continuously going on probably until fall camp. And last but not least, Clint, I want to ask you before we let you go, man, running back position, EJ Crowell, he's got all the attention coming in as a young guy, kind of like Ryan Williams, elite prospect, underage. Well, I say underage, meaning he should be in high school still. But a lot of hype around him. But then you also got guys coming back like Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley that played some meaningful snaps last year, and they're going to be pushing for that spot. And I would say the running back spot is wide open. You can't forget about A.K. Deer. Any early thoughts, Clint, on the running back position going into spring ball?
Yeah, I think early on, I think it's your established guys who get the first opportunity. They'll be the ones, being first and second going through the drills, and that's obviously Daniel Hill and Kevin Riley. But I think that the upside, and if you really if you're wanting to build around this idea of let's let a lot of these guys gel and grow together, the offensive line, the quarterback, there's multiple ways of looking at it. If you're going to start a guy like Keelan Russell, who's a little bit younger, he's only going to be a redshirt freshman, do you want the more established players on the field alongside of him, like a Daniel Hill or a Kevin Riley, or do you want to put the young, what I would view as higher ceiling talent, on the field alongside him and let them all grow together, and then once they start hitting their stride, then the offense is in a really good position. Obviously, you can make changes and tweaks throughout the year, and there's going to be a rotation at that position, so it's a little bit different than quarterback. But I like Hill. I've heard that he's put an emphasis on losing or dropping some weight this offseason. I think that's really important for him because while he does have some power, he doesn't run like a 244-pound running back. So don't be 244 pounds. It's kind of like Le'Veon Bell when he was 244 pounds at Michigan State. It's like that's not how he wanted to play or operate. And it's like, well, there's no point in being close to, being fullback size and you run, how you run. So you can still run with power, being 225 or 230 pounds. But I think just dropping some weight will give him a little bit more explosiveness, a little bit more wiggle. And then I think from a conditioning standpoint, I think that was also kind of a problem for him, was just the longevity part of it. But I do fully expect at least, those top four guys to be competing. I'll ultimately lean Crowell and Deer as the season progresses, but I could see it, Daniel Hill especially, being involved early on.
No doubt about it, man. Clint, I appreciate your efforts today, pushing through that cold. I know it's tough, and I said I was going to try to rush through it, man, but we had so much to hit before we go into spring ball. I held you a little bit longer than I anticipated. So thank you so much for hanging out with us, chatting it up, and again, before you go, man, tell everybody how they can stay up to date with all the good stuff Cover Crimson has coming their way as we approach spring ball.
Yeah, man, no problem. Always enjoy joining you. You can find me at Clint R. Lamb on Twitter, Cover Crimson YouTube channel, just search Cover Crimson, and then the Cover Crimson Podcast Network is what you need to search if you're wanting to just listen to the audio on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you want to choose to listen. But once again, Christian, I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Yes, sir. Sounds like a plan, brother. Rest up, man. We'll talk then.
Absolutely. See you, Christian.
Yes, sir. See ya. Good deal. Our guy, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson. Make sure you guys check them out. Like he said, man, Cover Crimson Podcast Network on all the podcast platforms, and Cover Crimson on YouTube, X, and all other social media sites. We got to hit a timeout. When we come back, we'll respond. We'll get y'all's thoughts, opening up the phone lines, 205-342-9904. What are you most excited for going into camp, spring camp? I almost said fall camp. And then the next thing off of that is, what transfer do you guys think will have the biggest impact in 2026? We'll talk about it when we come back right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Good stuff. Need to start their best O-line, regardless of position. No doubt, man. I think this year, man, get your 5 guys, 6 swing guy. Let them run it, man. Let them figure it out. Obviously, if you need to make a change, you can make a change. But like the rotating thing, I don't think that's ideal going in this year. He was used wrong at USC. Listen, yes and no. I don't think he needed to be playing any nose. They also had some very funky schemes. Watching their tape, I mean, they had some type of front where it was literally like a 5, a 3, a 3, and a 5. Basically, like the A gaps were just wide open, uncovered, and the backers were like 3 yards off the ball. It was, I don't know what kind of front or what the hell they were doing, honestly. So, to an extent, I agree with you. But at the same time, I mean, when we brought him here, I mean, the expectation is, to my understanding from everybody that I've talked to, that he's also going to be playing on the inside here. So I disagree to an extent. I agree that he didn't need to be playing nose, but he's going to be at least in a 4-eye, and you can still take on some combo blocks, you know, at the 4-eye. I mean, you're basically the inside shade of the tackle, and you can have a guard and a tackle come, you know, double team you, climb up. I mean, there's going to be some times. And again, that's if he's only playing bandit. I think they initially thought he could play 3 technique as well, which is, you know, when I was watching him on tape, that's when he really was having to deal with some of that stuff. So regardless, you know, he's going to have to improve at the point of attack. Got to be stronger at the point of attack, no matter where he plays. And he's a bigger guy. I don't know in terms of strength and stuff. I mean, play strength, I think he could be a little bit stronger. I don't know in terms of weight room numbers, but everybody told me, he looks the part. I mean, when you see him, he definitely looks the part. And a lot of that probably could be cleaned up with technique too. So we'll have to see. I think he's got some good potential for sure, but he's got to tap into it. Carson, what's up? Just found out I'm going to be oh man, congrats, man. Papa Carson, man. Shout out to Papa Carson in the chat, man. That's exciting. That's awesome, man. Congratulations. That's big time, man. That's big time. I can already imagine he or she will probably be a huge Alabama fan. Experience trumps talent most of the time. Yeah, like you know, Louis, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I think in some situations, man, you know, if they in a situation like this where both they're very limited in terms of true experience. Like, yeah, Austin Mack's older, so he's going to have more experience in the system, but they playing wise, they probably played a similar amount of snaps. So this one's a little bit different, but I agree with that for the most part. Keelan's going to win. He's too talented. We'll have to see, but I'm with you, man. I think his ceiling is really high. Really, really high. Mack will start, but Russell will come in. Could be something like that. We'll see. Interesting stuff about D Hill dropping weight. I expect a big jump in pass pro from this year. Remember, he was a high school quarterback, not a lot of reps at the position. Drinking through a fire hose. Yeah, listen, I think if he's dropping down to like 230, I think that even 230, I know Clint thinks like 225. Hell, TJ Yeldon was similar. TJ Yeldon was what, 6'2", 225? I think they wear the same number too. He might kind of give me TJ Yeldon vibes. I mean, for a bigger guy, he was always, pretty elusive. I think that's the right move. Clint's right. I mean, if you're not running behind your pads like that, no disrespect to him, but if that's just not really his game, if he's, not going to play that style of ball, I mean, you're better suited slimming down, and you still can definitely be powerful like that. 225, 230 as a running back, man. I mean, if anything, he'll probably get a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, and you can definitely be forceful at that size, no doubt. I think 230, man, they could be helping him out a lot. We'll have to see. Should we run with the quarterback under center with play action? No, to be honest with you, because our running game in this system is just not, it wouldn't really match up with that. So with our system, no. I get where you're going, but with our system, I don't think so. If anything, I wouldn't be mad if we started implementing more of an RPO game, man. I mean, you just watch Indiana. I mean, I think it's I think RPO game is just, newer ball, and it can be really effective. I wouldn't be mad about that, man. She won't have a choice. She's gonna be so roll tide. Found out the gender a few weeks ago. Oh, nice. All right, so you got a little girl, or you already know that. That's awesome, man. Gonna be a girl dad, man. You must have been what do they say? If you have a girl, you were I don't know, if you're running the streets or something back in your day, maybe, Carson. Is that what that means? I agree. I don't know why we strayed away from the RPO game. Yeah, I don't know. I do think it could be very beneficial. I think it'd be very beneficial. Especially, I mean, even like you're talking about think about like with a guy like Ryan Williams, I just feel like he would be, RPO game, like quick hitches, quick slants, stuff like that. You're just getting the ball to him, letting him, do what he does, making a guy miss. I don't know. Personally, I feel like it would be, I don't know. I feel like it would be very effective, but I don't know. Maybe there's a reason they didn't run too much of it. Maybe there's a reason that I just don't really, that I'm not seeing, but I do think it would be effective. All right, let's see. 26 likes. It's not bad. Let's see if we can get to 30 likes real quick before we come back. I forgot about the YouTube thing because we've been streaming on X now, which is great. We've added almost 100 more listeners via X, which is awesome, man. Shout out to all the new listeners that we got. Oh, man, that's funny, Carson. Takes pressure off the O-line. I mean, I think it, I don't know. Maybe they add some more RPO game. I think they started doing a little bit more of it towards the back half of the year, if I remember correctly. I think it's small, but I think quarterback runs play action seems to give him a few more seconds to throw. Yeah, I'm just saying, I think if we had like a more consistent run game, I think it would be more effective. But I just think the way this offense is set up and how the running game isn't really where we or they would probably like it to be. I don't know if it would fit or flow well, if that makes sense. But I know what you mean. I mean, with other systems, yeah, I like play action. I like under center play action, but I just don't know if it's a good fit for what we are running right now. And welcome back into this Talking Tuesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Just got done talking with our guy, Clint Lamb of Cover Crimson, like we do every Talking Tuesday at the top of the hour. Big shout out to him if you guys haven't. I'm sure you have. I think most Alabama fans keep up with the content that they post, man. They do a really good job. But if you haven't, make sure you check them out at Cover Crimson on YouTube and X, and Cover Crimson Podcast Network on all podcast platforms is where you can find them. We did a deep dive about spring ball, what to expect, and really good stuff from Clint. Want to get y'all's thoughts on it, man. 205-342-9904. I'm sure you guys have some thoughts. If you guys want to chime in, hit us up on the phone lines. Would love to do it. We've finally kind of cracked open Pandora's box about the quarterback battle, which we hadn't. We really have left it alone, man. But now it's about that time, guys. We're about to finally dive into it. So, Reed, let me ask you your thoughts real quick, man. We just got done talking with Clint. Anything stand out? Anything that you wanted to chime in on? I know you're eager to jump in on the action, man. I know there was something that you might have wanted to throw your 2 cents in. Offensive line, running back spot, quarterback battle. Anything going into spring that's really catching your attention right now?
I think, Clint pointed out pretty well. Of course, I'm ready to see what this offensive line is going to hold. There's going to be a bunch of new faces. And specifically, I think the Rayson Delgatti there, right at the center of your picture, that center position, I think a lot of people put the emphasis on the tackles being able to guard out those edge rushers and the guards being able to fill gaps. But when you think about the center, it's really the guy in command, calling the reads, calling, hey, block this guy, like just doing it all. And it feels like, if you don't have kind of a leader and someone that is vocal and can make the right, reads, I feel like that a center really is what I guess makes the rest of the offensive line work well together. So I'm intrigued. Of course, he's coming from, if I'm correct, I believe it was like Cal Poly. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he steps up from, that kind of ball to this SEC ball. And if he, like I said, if he's a vocal leader that, is ready for this SEC play.
Yeah, center is really important, man. And centers, like we talked about with Landon yesterday, it's just interesting because you got to be able to move well, especially you look at how our centers are used in this Coach DeBoer offense. I mean, they pull a lot. They need to be able to play in space, and you are covered up a little bit. You got the guards helping you out some in pass pro, but you're expected to do a lot. You got to be smart. You got to be able to make calls, get everybody on the same page up front, communicate with the quarterback well. So there's a lot on your plate as a center, and so there will be a lot of attention on Rayson Delgatti. I thought his tape was solid. Again, you mentioned Cal Poly, home of Josh Cuevas. I mean, if you're going off of history, you got a really good one out of Cuevas from Cal Poly. Hopefully, Rayson Delgatti can keep that consistent. But I liked his tape. I mean, the biggest thing, like we talked about yesterday with Landon, was that he does lack a little bit of strength at the point of attack, but, he's going to keep running his feet. He's going to be scrappy when he does lock on you. I mean, he's not letting you go, and he's going to try to finish until the whistle, which I like that, and then, like we talked about movement being so important for centers, especially in this system, he does that really well. All those things said, I think he's got a good chance to, plug in that center spot that was left open with the departure of Brailsford, and hopefully he can, the biggest question in my opinion, like Landon said also, is that can he translate to this next level well, right? Because Cal Poly, University of Alabama, where you're playing Georgia, Texas A&M, LSU, all within the conference, that's a little bit different of a ball game. But, I think he's definitely going to be interesting. He's a little bit bigger than Parker Brailsford too. So it's, with him, people are kind of questioning the size coming from Washington, a Pac-12, well, former Pac-12 conference team. Rayson Delgatti's not, small, so it's more so just, the level of competition was different. It's not like he's also undersized and coming to a more dominant conference. 205-342-9904. We got Carson on the phone lines, man. Let's go to the phone lines and hear from our guy Carson. Carson, welcome in, man.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I'm great, man, but probably not as good as you, man. You just found out you're about to be a dad, so I'm going to give you a public shout-out, man. Shout out to Carson, soon-to-be father, having a little girl who's probably going to be a future Alabama cheerleader, so good for you, brother.
Hey, we can hope. She won't have a choice, even though, see, my wife is she's an LSU fan. My wife went to LSU, but my wife said is she can be an Alabama football fan as long as she's an LSU baseball fan, and I said, fine, but deep down, that's not how it works. Like it's not how it works. I can't stand people who have all the different fandoms. It's like, no. You got to ride with your team. It doesn't matter. You got to pick one. So I'll let her choose, but I'm sure she's going to be rolling with the tide. If I have anything to say about it, but yeah, man. But all this stuff, dude. With spring, with camp coming up, man, I'm excited. I think there's a lot of opportunities to right our ship. I know there's a lot of question marks too, but you know me, I'm going to be optimistic until I have a
Till my dad
sensible
jumps on
reason
and
to
starts
not
giving you
be.
some pushback.
Yeah, but I don't want to. I never come from it where I'm just blowing smoke. I'm not going to make claims. I don't want to just make a claim that it's going to be this. But I am excited for the opportunity. I mean, there's a lot of new faces, new coaches. There might be some time. I think I brought it up a couple weeks ago, saying, "Look, this team has every opportunity to look at what Georgia did last year. They had a ton of new faces on defense, and people were saying at the beginning of the season last year that, well, this isn't the same Georgia defense as what it was. And then, 6-7 games through the season, they kind of figured a lot of stuff out personnel wise, and intensity, and their preparation looked better. It seemed like they got a grip on what they were trying to do, and they turned into a completely different team. So I think the talent in the room is every bit of capable of being able to do something like that, just based on pure talent. Now we'll see. There's just a lot of question marks, but like I said, I'm excited about it. I think the offensive line's intriguing, and I think the defensive line is actually more intriguing than what people are giving it credit in what they're talking about. Because the defensive line has a big competition going to happen for snaps. We don't really know. There's only maybe one or two solidified pieces right now on that defensive line that you can say for sure are going to get a ton of playing time at their respective positions. But other than that, man, there's going to be a ton of movement. So, yeah.
You know me, I'm a defensive guy. The defensive line is going to be I'm going to have a lot of attention there just because, Simmons, like him a lot. Beeman, I'm intrigued about him coming back. Remember, there was a lot of hype about him last offseason. I know he got hurt and ended up, missing majority of the year. But there was at one point, and I don't know if this got talked about a whole bunch, but there was at one point, even during the offseason, where there's thoughts from even some people in the building that he could end up kind of overtaking that nose spot from a guy like TK. Not saying like he necessarily takes his spot, but they were really impressed with what they were seeing out of him, that there was some belief that he could at some point start seeing, maybe even the majority of snaps at the spot. So that said, and we know how effective Tim Keenum was, I think there's going to be a lot of expectations on Beeman coming back just by, what they thought of him last year. Now, returning from an injury, sometimes it can take a little while. I think the good news is the closer you are to the football, I feel like sometimes you're a little bit better off. Not always, but like you look at Deontay Lawson, he had a knee injury, and you're running sideline to sideline. You're asked to drop the coverage. And yeah, you know what I mean? You're doing so many different things, breaking down, tackling in space. D-line being a nose guard, just like when Tim got hurt and he was able to come back a little bit quicker, you're not asked to really change direction nearly as much. So I think if anything, he should have a better chance, to come back just as strong, if not better, and hopefully have a good year. So I'm excited to watch guys like him. And of course, all the new transfers across the board. That's going to be really intriguing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you like you said, I mean, really the only one solidified spot is London, and he's gonna. I mean, I would love to see him play more natural to his body, like in terms of playing 4-eye. Being able to do some of those things more and not rotate around as just out of necessity. I would really like to see him playing that position, but with the guys that we brought in, just based on pure body type, I think he will have an opportunity to do that. And I mean, his motor is already great, and I mean, he could get a ton of just pressures on that alone at a spot that's more suitable to him and his skill set. So he could have a really, really big year. But I love Beeman coming back. The dude's built like a lunch lady, and we need more of those guys. Like he's got the perfect build for. And so I'm really excited about him. And then not only that, but being able to pair him with a Terrence Green, rotationally. I think that's a good rotation. I like T Green's body type. for playing inside like that. And I think it'll be a really good pairing if these guys come out hungry. Now, Tompkins, I got a lot of questions about Tompkins, but it's just that bandit position is going to be weird, right? Do you think?
Yeah, you know, Jamarian Latham coming back actually made me feel a lot better because he's a guy that definitely could play that. You know, he can play it. I know he moved to Wolf, but him moving back should be fine. I know he's coming off of a serious neck injury, but I think all the expectations are he should be back to rolling. And then you know, Cavante Hendry, I think if you can get him up to speed, he could also provide you some so it's like explosiveness from that position, a guy, especially on passing downs. But you're right. I mean, do you play Tompkins there, who was 285, maybe even 290 at one point? That's really big to be a true edge bandit guy. But who knows? Maybe you have different packages. Maybe depends on the team you're playing, kind of what you're expecting. You know, it could be. I don't know. And so you're right. We'll find that out this spring, kind of where guys are falling in these categories, even just position group wise. That'll be something to pay attention to. Carson, man, I appreciate you checking in, man. It's good to hear from you. And again, congrats on the big news, being a new father, brother.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Roll Tide, buddy.
Yes, sir. Roll Tide. We got to hit this quick timeout when we come back. We got a few more minutes, so we'll wrap things up. We'll try to get our guy Ellis on here, maybe about a minute or two before we close things out on this Talking Tuesday. This is the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC.
The Tuscaloosa Thread News Update is brought to you by Tuscaloosa Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Tuscaloosa's destination.
Oops. All right. And again, I appreciate you guys being patient with us early in the first segment or so when we had those issues. I did just get a message. Now, to be clear, it wasn't me. They ended up having to repair something. They did the repair and everything's back to normal. Granted, shout out to my cell phone for providing that hotspot for us today. But that was crazy, man. Literally, as soon as the show started, as soon as I hit go live, everything just shut off. And I was like scrambling, trying to get my hotspot pulled up, and the computer kept trying to go back. It was a mess. But I appreciate you guys being patient. Ended up being a great show, man. First segment was a little rough going in and out, but we ended up having a great show, man. So I appreciate you guys hanging with us. Gray says, front seven is somewhat questionable, but DB room looks really strong. Oh, yeah, man. DB room is, man, a ton of experience returning. A number of young players that have a lot of potential. I mean, you know, Drake Kirkpatrick, just seeing Landon post some of those clips, man, just reminding us like that's a dude that he's a hitter. You know, he's a go-getter, ball hawk. He's going to carve himself out a role. I like Ivan Taylor, young safety. You know, even just from a depth perspective, I think guys like that. Chuck McDonald is intriguing. I know some people might have forgot about him a little bit, but and really, there's not a whole bunch of roles that these guys are going to be really carving out. More kind of just next guy in, you know, type deals. I mean, Mincy's back. I mean, everybody's returning except Damani Jackson, and you did lose what's his name to the portal. What's his name? The guy that transferred here last year. But yeah, man, secondary solid. It's front seven. We just got to get those guys to come together, but I think it could end up looking like a by committee type deal. I think you could see a number of guys get snaps. That if you had to ask me, I think that's how this defense, like the front seven, ends up taking shape. I think they're going to have a number of guys that are working in, getting snaps, and kind of like a by committee approach and kind of see where it goes. Man, I don't think we're going to have a bunch of time to get Ellis because we probably got to get out of here in literally like a minute of coming back. Reed, do you want to ask Ellis? Tell him, unfortunately, we only have like 1 minute when we come back. Do you want to ask him? Do you want to ask him if he wants to hold for the next show or see if he wants to just jump on for like 45 seconds or so? I don't even know if we'll have that at this point. Want to see Dre get a lot more starting time? Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he could definitely I mean, both corner spots. I mean, DJ Lee and Xavier Brown, those are taken. Red Morgan, I feel like, is his job to lose at the Husky. But there could be some competition there. for some snaps for somebody else. Thank you, Louis. I appreciate that. Safety, though, I mean, you got Bray and Sapp, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, you still got Mincy. You still got the young guys we talked about. Ivan Taylor, you talk about Kirkpatrick Jr. I mean, those guys are going to be pushing, and dime packages, you end up having an extra DB out there. So, okay, he'll call back later. Okay.
Tide, download the Tide 100.9 app today.
And welcome back in this Talking Tuesday edition of Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. All right, we just got a few quick minutes before we get out of here, but big shout out to our guest of today, Clint Lamb. Joins us every Tuesday, man. Really good stuff as always. I need to remind you about our friends over at Lamparello Law. Again, every Thursday, we're joined by our official lawyer in representation here on the Miller's Edge, Adam Lamparello of Lamparello Law, Education and Advocacy. Again, if you guys are in the need of anybody for representation, but not only that, for career success, providing mentoring, exam and test taking preparation, subject matter mastery, application strategy, personal statements, resume, so many things, the list goes on. Misconduct matters, right? If you have any of those come up in the school system, whether you're a student, faculty, or athlete dealing with name, image, and likeness, that's very prevalent in today's college athletics landscape. All criminal defense matters, of course. They will take care of you. And most importantly, the best prices that you'll be able to find, and they will do it with genuine care, passion, and relentless advocacy. So make sure you guys check them out if you want that type of representation from our guy Adam here on the show. 201-317-5115 is how you can get a hold of them. Their website soon to be launched. It's still in the works, but Lamparello-Law will be that official website to get all your information. Again, that is Lamparello Law, Education and Advocacy. You can't beat it, man. They will take care of you in pretty much any capacity you can think of. They got you covered at Lamparello Law. And they'll be joining us, Adam will be joining us on Thursday as well. All right, that being said, I need to give you guys one quick update before we get out of here. All right, so I heard back from media side of things over with football. So we're going to have Coach DeBoer on here on the show at one point, but it won't be this week. They're gearing up for spring ball. Things kind of came up. So we're going to push that back a little bit as they kind of get worked into spring ball, kind of get acclimated a little bit, which totally fine. And we appreciate them even just making it happen. But the good news is we are going to call an audible and we'll substitute. So while we're going to push Coach DeBoer a little bit into the future, still during spring ball, just in a couple weeks, we will probably get ourselves a good little player interview lined up pretty soon. So that will be fun. And I'll keep you guys in the loop on who that might be. If it is, so I think we'll plan on getting on here. It's going to be a really good one. I think you guys will be really fired up for it because I'll give you guys a hint. Really good pairing with us here on the Miller's Edge, and really talented player, one of the best players, I might say, coming back this season. So I'll keep you guys updated on that. But that'll do it for us on this Talking Tuesday edition. Again, big thanks to Reed, Chase Behind the Glass, all our listeners across the radio networks, all of our social media platforms and streaming services, and, of course, all of our partners and sponsors that help make all this happen. We appreciate all you guys, and we look forward to doing it again tomorrow right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. We'll see you guys then.